All right, guys, I think that we are going to just dive right in. If anyone rolls in now, just a little later, don't worry, you'll be able to access this full recording later, so you will not miss a single thing. But I am going to kick off now. I am so excited that all of you have joined. We are going to dive into how to unclutter your marketing to spark better campaigns, efficiency, and most importantly, to spark joy in your team. So just to very quickly introduce myself, my name is Lisa Firestein, and I'm not even making this up. My friends, my family, my parents, they all call me the Tornado. And I got that nickname because according to them, any room I walk into, I wreak havoc upon that space. Everything goes everywhere. I am a mess. This is actually, case in point, real live footage of my chair drobe. I call it my chair drobe because it's where all of my clothes go. And now that I've just gotten personal and I've shared this very intimate photo of my chair drobe with you, I want to know from you, on a scale of 1, not at all, to 10, extremely, how messy are you in your personal life? Now, I'm going to open up a quick poll. Don't worry, it's anonymous. Your boss is not going to see this. So I am just going to launch this now, and I would love to have you all answer and see what you're going to say. All right. Be honest, guys. There's no shame. I just got personal with you. So, all right. Awesome. All right. Okay. I'll leave it there. We have a fairly even spread here. I don't know if you guys can see all those results, but all right, a lot of us are a 7. So I think we're a little bit on the messier side, or no, maybe on the neater side. I see. All right. Well, awesome. I'm glad you guys are neat, hopefully neater than me. But anyway, let's bring it back to business on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm curious about why you guys tune in. So from 1, not at all, to 10, extremely, how cluttered is your team's marketing process, would you say? And by that, I mean your system, your workflows, the way your team sets up what needs to get done in your marketing. And I'm going to launch the second poll here. All right. Let's see that. I'm just curious. I want to know what brought you guys here today. Oh man, we're seeing some high numbers here. All right. Luckily, not too many 9s and 10s. That's good. I will share the results in a second, just letting a couple more people vote. All right. Okay. So as you can see, we also have a little bit on the messier side, I'd say, maybe somewhere in the middle is where most of you lie. So, you know, I'm glad you came here today. Regardless of your level of clutter, we're going to talk about how to clear up a couple things to supercharge everything you are doing. All right, let's close that up. So that brings us to welcome. Welcome to welcome. In case you're not familiar with what we do, we are a marketing orchestration platform. We help you manage everything in the way you work. And you might already know this, but what we really do is we get marketers' virtual workspaces organized. So even though I'm a mess in my personal life, I'm not in my work life because my colleagues have been amazing. They've really helped me with this. Our software has really helped me with this. And our mission is to get marketers' virtual workspaces organized. And this is maybe similar to some other productivity tools out there that you might be familiar with, like Monday or Asana. But unlike those, we're designed specifically for marketers, not just for organizing your work. And we make sure your entire strategies are organized too, so you can easily see exactly why you're doing what you're doing and what you need to do to further your most important goals. And in our years of work fulfilling this message of trying to get marketers organized, we've seen some common areas, some common issues that are essentially clutter, getting in the way of marketers' goals. And I'm not trying to exaggerate the severity of the situation. You know, we work with some pretty smart, amazing clients, so none of the clutter we've seen has ever reached hoarders buried alive level. But regardless, clutter is still a hazard, even if there's only a little bit, because you can trip over it, especially if you're trying to move quickly as a team, because clutter presents challenges. It presents challenges towards seeing who does what on a day-to-day basis, who on your team is maybe doing too much or too little. It prevents you from moving quickly, moving efficiently, keeping to a schedule and a strategy, and this is really important, presenting a clear, consistent, non-disjointed brand to your customers. If everything is cluttered in the way you work, you know, it's going to be cluttered for the people who are seeing your work on the other side. Now, it wasn't as bad way back in the day when dinosaurs roamed the earth and we worked in physical offices. It was okay if our digital platforms were a little all over the place, because when we were all sharing an office together, you could just resolve confusing stuff in person. You could fix problems more easily right then and there. But now, of course, you know, as we all know, offices are largely out of the picture. You no longer have that in-person medium, and you really depend, in fact, you entirely depend on your virtual shared spaces. And in fact, some of us don't even have a single virtual workspace. We're living in a million tools to fulfill a million different marketing tasks, from planning to budgeting to prioritizing. We'll touch a little bit more on that later. But really, this means that you really have to keep your virtual space clean and clear of clutter. And as our job of keeping marketers digitally organized became even more important, especially in this pandemic, we started getting deeper as a team. And it really made us think about the moment we're in right now. And in case you haven't noticed, over the past few years, a new clean look has been thrust upon us as minimalism has gained more and more traction and entered the mainstream. One huge driver of this is the Minimalists blog that launched a few years ago, featuring these two dudes, and I don't know their names, but they have a new documentary on Netflix. I checked it out. I'm gonna be honest, it's not that great, but it is, you know, you can check it out if you'd like. And from a marketing perspective, minimalism has pervaded our branding, our design. So many brands from tech to fashion and many other industries have switched over their branding to become a lot more clean, a lot more minimalist. But perhaps the biggest minimalism influencer here is this lady, Marie Kondo. Who is Marie Kondo? You're probably familiar with her if you were attracted to join this session. But just to fill you in, if you're not familiar with who she is an organizing and decluttering pro from Japan. And she is particularly famous for her rule that says when you're uncluttering and you're picking stuff up and you're trying to decide what to keep and what to discard, if an item doesn't immediately spark a sense of joy in you, it goes in the trash. And this is just one of the things she said in her bestseller, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And this was such a huge hit that, of course, Marie ended up getting her own Netflix show. And the Netflix show was such a hit that there was actually a spike in Goodwill donations and donations to thrift stores after her show debuted. And it even got to the point where some thrift stores had to say, guys, stop donating all your stuff. We can't handle all of these donations. So all of this got us thinking, what if Marie Kondo were a marketer? What would she say? What would her advice be? In other words, could we become marketing minimalists? How could we apply minimalism, which we've been pretty passionate about applying to our home lives, our personal lives, to marketing and to the way we work? So today we're going to talk about uncluttering our virtual workspaces and apply the lessons from here to our marketing. Now, don't get us wrong, we're not 100% sold on everything Marie says. We're going to be skipping over a lot of stuff in this book because she proposes some things that, number one, are definitely not relevant to marketing, and number two, are pretty kooky. For example, she encourages you every once in a while to open up the container where you're storing your off-season clothes and give them a nice stroke and let them know you care. She also insists your socks have feelings, and you'll notice them breathing a sigh of relief when you fold them in this very specific way that she is folding them. And when removing accessories, she tells her clients to say, "Thank you for making me beautiful today." So she's a little kooky, but she does have some pretty compelling, profound advice when it comes to uncluttering and getting organized. And the first thing she says is that before you start your process, visualize your destination. We agree. And to us, from a marketing perspective, this means understanding the why behind your work. So understanding how the content you're creating or the campaigns you're running is laddering up to the bigger picture. But it's helpful for everyone, regardless of who you are on a team, to understand what your purpose is in driving your business forward. So first, visualize your destination and also visualize what you'll have to overcome to get there. And there's a lot to overcome. We've done a lot of surveys with Circuit Research over the past couple of months, and they've helped us identify marketers' top challenges and priorities. And one of the most shocking things we found is that 78% of marketers use 5 or more tools just to plan, manage, and execute their campaigns. And 80% of marketers say it takes their team over 12 weeks to launch a single campaign, which I don't know about you, but I think that's too long. And we've also asked people, what's keeping you up at night? And a lot of these themes are actually really stressing marketers out. It's keeping them up at night. And there were some pretty telling responses to this question. We have one person saying just the fact that their marketing organization is dysfunctional, that's keeping them up at night. Getting content out on time when there's so many players involved. The current process and balancing existing day-to-day work with everything new and emerging that's happening in the world. And then also, this person got a little sassy. What's keeping them up at night is their marketing team's inability to market something and keep organized what has and hasn't worked. So there are huge challenges here, which, by the way, uncluttering can address. And this is why you should make tidying a special event to really address these challenges and not something that's a chore. So tidy once and aim for perfection, because if you're just going to tidy a little a day, you'll be tidying forever. So our goal is to help you plan that big special uncluttering event, whether it takes, the course of a day or maybe a few weeks. And I'm going to show you how our marketing team uses Welcome to unclutter and stay organized. There will be a few product plugs in here, but even if you're using other tools, I think there's tons of insights here that are actionable that you can take away. And there's some really compelling ways that uncluttering can impact the way you work on a daily basis. It can streamline your whole marketing process. You'll spend less time coordinating and organizing, more time actually marketing and doing your job. You'll see better communication. You'll have a clearer, stronger brand to present to your customers. And these are really important day-to-day impacts. But I actually think that there are even more essential benefits. And Marie explains it like this. She says, a dramatic reorganization of the marketing home causes correspondingly dramatic changes in lifestyle and perspective. And when you put your house in order, you put your affairs and your past in order too. So maybe you're holding on to clutter because there's something in your brand's past you haven't been able to let go of. And uncluttering helps you reconcile your past mistakes, your brands, or even your own cringy moments and regrets that are keeping you up at night. And so this can help you really make amends with that past and sprint forward with an uncluttered, clean slate towards the future. So without further ado, let's go. And we are going to start off where it all begins, which is your calendar. And we're going to talk about all the different events and things that go on your calendar. So marketing activities often look, or at least feel like this. You're firing all cylinders, a bunch of fireworks in a bunch of different directions at the same time. Every team is doing their own thing, launching their own campaigns, launching their own content. And it's confusing and it's tough to know what's going on and how all these different initiatives connect. And really, there's this sense of chaos that is often reflected in calendars. And I'm sure you've seen a few calendars like this, at least in Google Cal or something, that are really chaotic because everything is visible all at once. And this is a huge issue because visibility is important. 77% of marketers say maintaining visibility is important, but it's also our number 2 biggest challenge, the fact that we don't have a single unified calendar to really be able to see what's happening in marketing. And so uncluttering your calendar can really help alleviate this. It'll make your schedule clear for everyone involved, easy to follow. It'll also be really easy to see what your overall grand marketing strategy is and really remember what that is on a day-to-day basis while you're working towards this strategy. And it's also clear how every marketing initiative, even down to the smallest task, ladders up to your grand strategy. And what's great is that you'll save time and money by doing this because you'll be able to immediately see what activities are redundant or unnecessary and just cut those out of your process. So our first unclutter tip of the day to get uncluttering your calendar is to split everything in your plan, in your calendar, into categories and then organize accordingly. Because according to Marie Kondo, tidying by category works like magic. And at Welcome, we've actually identified 3 tried and true categories that have really worked for us when organizing our calendar. So the first one is planning and deadlines. And so these are all internal dates. So when your team has to hit specific milestones internally on its way to completing a project. And then we also have deadlines for individual contributors to a project. So these are all internal dates, draft due dates, maybe things that the public isn't necessarily going to see right away. Then our second category, we've got publishing and events. So this is really the day that your work gets released or debuted to the public or your customers. And it's the day your events happen, the day your product launches, the day you make an announcement, anything like that. And then finally, we have meetings and personal stuff, your PTO, your brainstorms, your catch-up meetings, all of that. And really, we're just going to go over these 2 because we think the third should just be in your Google Calendar or whatever personal calendar you use. And so then, as Marie says, it's important to designate a place for each category. And you can do this in 2 ways. You can either have 1 calendar per category or 1 view per category within a single calendar. So we've taken the 1 view approach because we've got 1 calendar in Welcome, and you can see everything in this calendar. But what I like about it is that you're also able to parse it apart to see these categories in their own separate views. So once again, just a quick recap, we've got category 1, planning and deadlines, and here's a few examples of what that might encompass. So quick admin tasks, maybe the stages to creating a landing page, social posts, dates to finalize strategy concepts internally, all of these internal milestone dates. So this is what the planning view of our calendar looks like in Welcome. It's really great because you can actually see in the in the upper left-hand corner, you can toggle between a planning and a publishing view, which is really cool. You can click on everything in this calendar to see the grand plan, to see how it ladders up to your larger strategy, to your larger initiatives. You can color code it all, which is great for keeping it organized and really figuring out, which task is pertaining to which larger project or campaign or strategy. And through a quick check mark, you can see what's on track and what isn't. And then we also have category 2, publishing and events. Again, a quick recap. This might entail the day your white papers or big reports get released, the day your social campaigns debut, the day you send out an email, anything like that. And this is what the publishing view looks like in Welcome. You can see all the channels you're posting to. We've got social logos right in the corner, so you can see, if you're posting something to social, exactly where it's going to end up going. Again, you can color code it all, which is super handy. It's also really handy for seeing the global plan. If you've got a bunch of different regions around the world, different offices, you can see what the long-term view is for all of those different regions and see what's taking place around the world. And it's also good for seeing what's happening long-term. And here's another great view of our publishing. You can sort it all by events, and we have all of those dates outlined. And this is actually a screenshot from our own welcome platform that we use. Now, to make sure that you can actually find everything in this calendar, that leads us to Unclutter tip number 2, which is make it mandatory to label everything on the calendar. Now, at Welcome, we are label crazy. We love labels. And by labels, just to be clear, this is what we use to refer to content, metadata, taxonomy, tags. So basically tagging. And here's what mandatory labels look like in Welcome. You can get as granular or general as you like. It's also great because it really forces you to think about what really matters to your team when it comes to categorizing your projects or initiatives or anything you're trying to do. Here you could see, we can label which competitors we're trying to target with this. We've got a Sprinkler and Workfront in here. We've got what types of assets we're going to debut as a part of this initiative. We have the region we're trying to target. So really anything that's important to us, we can label it accordingly. And it's really easy to maintain this sense of organization, because if you are at the onset of a project and you all agree on what labels you're going to use at the beginning, it's really easy to just apply those labels and find what you're looking for in your calendar every single time. And what's also great is that our labels are always mandatory. You actually can't create a new campaign or task without labeling it. And the great thing about labeling, of course, is that if everything's labeled correctly, you're going to get a really great filter feature and ability to filter down and find what you're looking for. You can filter through any kind of customized filter, and you can save your favorite filters. You can view the hierarchy, which is my favorite part. You can see exactly how whatever you're looking at pertains to a higher strategy. And really, colors come in handy as well here also, because you can see, according to your color-coded view, what is happening and where everything is falling into. So that leads us to this question: how can you split everything on the agenda into categories, create a separate view for each category, and ensure every item is labeled correctly and easy to find? All right. So now, next up, we're going to unclutter your toolshed. So all of your tools, all of your software integrations that are cluttering up your system. So, I'll go back. So each of us, no matter our role, has a lot of software tools, integrations, or at least access to a lot of different tools. And I bet you're using or have used at least a few of these here. And these are common tools that might be cluttering up your space. Now, to be clear, we're not dissing any of these specific tools at all. But based on our experience, having too many tools, no matter how great they all are, is one of the reasons why some of our most important priorities are also our hardest to fulfill. For example, just getting campaigns out the door and through the right door, channel execution is especially important to creative marketers, product marketers, anyone in leadership, brand marketers, but it is also these marketers' biggest bottleneck to getting work done. And the same thing with governance, ensuring everything released to the public is aligned, consistent, done correctly, on brand, even though it is super important to comms and PR folks, to integrated marketers, to content marketers, to demand gen marketers. Just trying to do so is a huge bottleneck to your day-to-day work. So just to sum up, the pros of uncluttering your software toolbox to uncluttering your integrations: you'll have less content lost or altered as you shuffle between one tool and the next. It's easier to get campaigns and assets out the door. You'll spend less time navigating different platforms. It reduces the number of steps in your process, saving you time. It makes it more efficient. And you'll also save yourself from having too many tabs. You can save your little laptop from this dire fate of having to have 50 tabs open, and then you won't be able to keep track of what's actually happening. So save yourself from that fate by uncluttering your software toolbox, and really ask yourself this question: do you really need all of the tools that you have? When it comes to assessing what you should keep, Marie says, and this is one of her most famous words of wisdom you might be familiar with: the best way to choose what to keep and what to throw away is to take each item in one's hand and ask, does this spark joy? If it does, keep it. If it does not, dispose of it. Now, let's unpack that. Obviously, you can't physically touch software, but you can log in and click around on stuff and play around with the tool. So unclutter tip number 3, log in and poke around every tool in your stack before deciding what to discard. And while you're poking around, for each tool, ask, how often does the team use it? Is there a tool we already use and like more that can do the same thing? Is there a better option out there that we haven't tried? And have we already switched to a competing tool but forgotten to unsubscribe or delete this one? You know, it happens a lot, no shame. It's like when you've forgotten to cancel your Spotify or your Blue Apron subscription. You know, we've all been there, it's okay. But this is all pretty practical stuff that you should think through. So while you should be practical, don't be too practical and rational. As Marie says, when it comes to selecting what to discard, it is actually our rational judgment that causes trouble. Although intuitively we know that an object has no attraction for us, our reason raises all kinds of arguments for not discarding it, such as, I might need it later, or it's a waste to get rid of it, and then everything is impossible to get rid of. So I think to apply this to marketing software, you really can take Marie's advice and think about whether this tool sparks joy or whether it sparks sheer frustration, as technology often does. My dad actually got so mad at our printer that instead of getting a new printer like he should have, he posted this on there to calm himself down whenever he had to print something. It says, warning, this machine is subject to breakdowns during periods of critical need. A special circuit in the machine called a critical detector senses the operator's emotional state in terms of how desperate he or she is to use the machine. The critical detector then creates a malfunction proportional to the desperation of the operator. Threatening the machine with violence only aggravates the situation. Likewise, attempts to use another machine may cause it to also malfunction. They belong to the same union. Keep cool and say nice things to the machine. Nothing else seems to work. And I'm sure we can all relate to this. And if you want to get a little more precise when you figure out what to discard, you can think of it like it's an index. So I just created this handy frustration index. So each axis, you've got on the x-axis, you've got the business value or level of necessity. So how important is this tool really to your business? How valuable is it? How much do you need it to actually do your job? And then on the y-axis, we have ease of use and level of frustrating. So is this tool just a little bit annoying or is it extremely frustrating? Now, if you've got a tool that is not really that essential and extremely frustrating to use, just trash it, really, just throw it away. But if you have a tool that is very essential and you don't really have very many problems with it, of course you should keep it. If a tool is very essential but very annoying, you might just have to put up with it. And we have a tool, I will not name names, we have a tool that I feel this way about, and hopefully we end up trashing it at some point or finding a better option. And then for everything in the middle, that's up to you, for you to debate. And you can also think about it in terms of how often you're fielding complaints about a tool if you're not sure whether you should keep it or trash it or just hold on and see how you feel later. So then, once you're done discarding, you should then store everything that you have decided to keep. And when it comes to storage, as Marie says, pursue ultimate simplicity. So that brings us to unclutter tip number 4, consolidate your tools and your integration into as few platforms as possible, preferably one. So as I said before, many of us are operating too many tools to keep track of to fulfill these key marketing functions, sometimes multiple tools, multiple Google Docs and spreadsheets within each of these categories. So shameless plug, one tool that can replace many of these tools is Welcome. And so we have all kinds of tools that you can integrate into Welcome. If you have a tool that sparks joy and you want to bring it in, there's a very good chance that you'll be able to do that. We have tons of different features built in, so you don't have to get separate tools for every function. We've got campaign budgeting tools, financial reporting, a DAM, which we'll talk about later, content management, all kinds of tools. And I actually included an image here of perhaps my favorite tool that we have as a content marketer. This is our editing tool. So if I need to edit a piece of content, rather than having to type up a doc and say, okay, sentence 3, word 1, this is what you edit, you can actually just pinpoint exactly what you want on the screen with a little square or circle or whatever you want and leave a comment. So how can you effectively discard tools and house those you choose to keep in one home? All right. And then finally, moving on to our last uncluttering mission, and this is to clean your room, or should I say, your asset room, because a decluttered dam is important, considering the fact that 71% of us say that being able to easily repurpose and track content and assets is really essential. And 81% of us say that being able to produce campaigns and content faster is important. And having a cluttered dam really gets in the way of that. And one reason that, keeping organized, moving fast, and just being able to keep tabs on your process is a huge challenge is because we've often seen that assets are just scattered all over the place. You have all the different kinds of assets different marketers are using scattered across different tools. So maybe you've got your image assets in your Google Drive, you've got press releases in a Dropbox, product videos in a Dropbox, something else on someone's private desktop. It's hard to even know what you have, and it's a mess. So even though Marie advocates discard first, store later, when it comes to how you manage your assets, we actually think you should scratch this and instead think about storing your assets first so you can actually see everything you have and then discard later. And we have a pretty handy asset library in Welcome. We could store pretty much any kind of asset that you could think of. It's all in one place. You can even see the history of every asset in your dam. You can see, how effective it was, how each marketer on your team has used this asset. And then it's really easy to see what you can repurpose and recycle and maybe get inspiration from again. So that brings us to unclutter tip number 5. Once you gathered all your assets in one place, then you can discard them. And when you're doing that, identify what performed well, what didn't, which assets might you actually repost or republish, and which ones you won't. And then which assets, even if you don't necessarily use them again or repost them again, which ones can inspire your future assets and campaigns. And when you're discarding, I really encourage you to get inspired by Marie Kondo. She says it like this: when my clients think they have finished gathering every last piece of clothing, I always ask them, are you sure there's not a single piece of clothing left in the home? Then I add, you can forget about any clothes you find after this. They'll automatically go in the discard pile. I let them know I'm quite serious. If someone doesn't remember an item at this point, it obviously doesn't inspire a thrill of joy, and therefore I am quite ruthless. So we think you should be ruthless too. If you don't realistically think you can or should use an asset again, don't. And by doing this, you'll end up clearing out some trash that you really needed to get rid of, but you'll also end up finding some treasure under the couch of your dam. Like that time I actually found, and I'm not even making this up, a $100 bill under my childhood bed. This guy from the UK, pictured here, he made the news for finding 85 pounds of coins under his couch. So maybe you'll find the asset equivalent of 85 pounds of coins, something you can repurpose or use to inspire your future assets or campaigns. So which assets can you repurpose or use to get re-inspired? Which should you unclutter and discard? And which ones, and how can you store everything that you choose to keep in one library? All right, so we're about to end our session. We really want you, hopefully, to get inspired, not just to unclutter, but maintain a really clean, uncluttered space for your team and for yourself, and really try to keep this up. As Marie says, rebound occurs because people mistakenly believe they have tidied thoroughly when in fact they have only sorted and stored things halfway. So as soon as this is over, really send a Google invite to your team. Start setting up your uncluttering events as soon as you can. And once you've discarded, choose a home for what you keep. We hope you choose welcome. But if not, we hope that this session was useful and that you can find a way to really effectively store everything that you choose to keep in your process. And perhaps besides just the benefits of uncluttering as it comes to your day-to-day work and just maintaining organization, I think there's another and maybe an even more important reason to unclutter your marketing. And Marie says it like this: visible mess helps distract us from the true source of this disorder. The act of uncluttering is really an instinctive reflex that draws our attention away from the heart of an issue. So are there real issues or areas for improvement that might be hiding behind some of the clutter in your process? And it's not even just about uncluttering. Really, think about what sparks joy for your team and for you at work. Are there things in your job that are just, part of the job that are unavoidable? Are there ways you can reduce those parts of the job? And how can we just do more things in marketing that inspire joy? So with that, I say thank you so much. I really enjoyed having you all here. If you want to learn more, visit our website. If you'd like to just say hi or ask for any specific information or questions that you think of later, you can always say hi to me. Lisa@welcomesoftware.com is my email. Also, I'm fairly lonely out here, so if you just want to say hi, that would be nice. I'm going to head off now. Thank you guys so much, and feel free to reach out anytime. And I hope you all stay safe. Thank you.